Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the June 8th, 2022 regular meeting of the Conservation Commission. The first order on the agenda is approval of minutes. We do have one member absent today, so Abigail will be voting today as alternate. So does anybody want to make a motion on the minutes? Allison?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of last meeting with the correction that Andrew Simonis was not here.
Thank you. Good one. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one small correction on page 7, the bottom of the first paragraph, about the fourth line up from the bottom. It says city judge, and it shouldn't say city, it should just say judge. So you can just cross out city.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Anybody online have comments? No?
Jess's hand is up.
Yeah, yay.
I just wanted to say that I'm going to abstain from voting on this since I wasn't present at last meeting.
That's good, thank you. All right. So we have a motion and
I'll second.
second, thank you. And then we have two members that are virtually participating, which is Jess and also Samantha, our vice chair. So we do a roll call vote. Ted?
Yes.
Lynn?
Here.
Yes.
Abigail? Allison?
Yes.
And Jess?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And Samantha?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
So that was unanimous with one abstention, right?
Yep. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the wetland conditional use permit, 2255 Lafayette Road. Is anybody here to speak to that?
Used to saying good evening, but I guess it's good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Duquette from GPI. Also with me here from Granite State Convenience and Common Man Roadside is Brad Perna. Peter, do you have the plans that
I
you
do. I'm
have?
just getting to it now. So do
Okay.
you want the plan set?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And specifically, we'll start off with the second page of the plan set.
Okay. Let's find it here. It doesn't look like it's bookmarked to the plan.
So just to go through it while he's pulling it up, the site is an existing 2.5 plus or minus acre site within the Gateway Corridor District. You're probably very familiar with the site. It's the Burger King site across from Water Country, and next to it to the east is a custom pool store, and to the west is Advanced Auto Parts. In the back, there is a large wetland system.
So,
I'm almost there. Sorry.
yeah. You're on page, which, on the,
It's sheet 2. I think.
Sheet
two,
2 is
okay.
the existing
I'm not
conditions.
finding the share screen.
Sheet 2 of the plan
That's
set.
the problem. I got to get into the Zoom.
So the existing Burger King site does have a whole lot of pavement to it. I believe it has about 73 parking spaces and a drive-through that goes around the back. So all of that will be raised. The existing wetland buffer, setback to the wetland buffer, is about a foot off of the back edge of the pavement to the main wetland. It goes a little bit further away along the side, but I do want to mention that side wetland over to plan left or east on the plan is a swale. That is the outlet from the DOT culvert, from Route 1 or Lafayette Road, outlets out into that swale and brings it back to the main wetland system. So it is kind of like a finger that comes out from the main wetland system. Do you mind going to sheet 4?
That one?
that one.
Okay.
So what we're proposing is, forgot about this. What we're proposing is a 4,970 square foot building. It's going to be the Common Man roadside. Similar locations, there's one in Goffs Falls Road in Manchester, corner of Goffs Falls Road and South Willow Street. And then there's another in Plymouth Street. This will be similar to those. It is a different building footprint, but this is their new prototype footprint. So it's going to be Common Man roadside with a drive-through. As you can see on the plan, there is, there we go. Right there, there is a main drive-through lane, and then there is a secondary drive-through lane for mobile pickup orders to allow the queue to go a little bit faster. We are proposing 26 parking spaces, and then an additional 10 spaces are allotted at the pumps. So at the pumps, we have 5 fuel dispenser islands, and that means 10 fueling locations, or the 10 parking spaces that we have there. Do want to mention, we did originally, way back when, I can't even remember what month it was, but I think it was last summer maybe, or at the end. Anyways, we met with Peter and the staff at the time for a conceptual staff meeting. And the original plan did show parking spaces. Okay, come on. Sorry, this isn't working for me anymore. So we did show parking spaces along the wetland finger. We showed it closer because the edge of pavement does come closer. We showed parking spaces there. We showed a loading area, a bigger pavement area to the rear of the site, closer to the main wetland system. And I believe the USTs were over on the left-hand side of the plan too. So in that meeting, we did talk it over with staff, and I believe Mr. Britz made the recommendation for us to shift the plan so that it was closer to plan right. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, there's a-
Oh, there it is. Okay. It's the top button. Okay. Thank you. Technology does not go with me all the time. So the parking spaces we did propose were over here. And then we went further back around here because this is all existing pavement today. The dumpster is right there today. And so per the staff's recommendation, we did go back to the drawing board and we did remove the parking spaces along the side. We did reduce the amount of parking spaces because we're allowed to have the parking spaces at the pumps. And we made sure that the USTs were outside of the buffer. So with the changes, we've reduced the site pavement by about 3,000, but even more importantly, we've reduced the amount of impervious area within the buffer by about 9,000 square feet. So that is significant. The other thing to mention too is that I keep on going for that bottom button. We've increased the distance to the buffer in both the main wetland right here, and we've increased it over here too. So right now it just goes to the existing pavement edge. We've doubled the buffer distance along this edge. And we're going from 0 to about 20 feet back here. And then all of this pavement will be removed as well. And we did come before the Conservation Commission conceptually at the beginning of this too, and there was recommendations there was concerns regarding snow dump along this edge because there is the wetland right here. So what we did is we took this area and we depressed this area so that it creates almost like a little rain garden just for snow dump. There's no stormwater going there. It's just going to be for the melting of the snow so that it's not going directly into the wetland. The other thing that was mentioned was providing a chain link fence along the back of the site, just to make sure that any flying trash or debris that manages its way on the site is collected at the fence, rather than going into the wetland. So, to just talk about the stormwater that we've proposed on the site. Do you mind going to the next page, Peter? Thank you. So there's various catch basins around the site, and there are deep sump catch basins with oil water separator hoods. We do have, all of that does go in the back. We do have First Defense hydrodynamic oil water separators for a pretreatment unit, as well as an oil water separator tank in the back, just to make sure that any oil that spills on this parking lot is contained within either the catch basin, the First Defense units, or the oil water separator tank. Then after the water is pre-treated, it does go into an underground storage system that's in the back of this property, back here. And then it goes into a jellyfish treatment unit, which I believe the city of Portsmouth is very familiar with those jellyfish stormwater treatment units. I see them popping up all over the place. So that is in the back, and that's able to treat all the water from the site. So we're going from a site that has no drainage, no stormwater treatment on site. All the drainage existing is sheet flowing right into the wetland or to Route 1 to assist to development that will treat all stormwater, both pre-treat and treat all stormwater before it does outlet into the wetland or off the site. With that being said, if you have any questions, both myself and Mr. Pernar are here. Thank you.
Allison?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Just out of curiosity, why is the sewer line moving?
The sewer line? So we did video the sewer line. It's a good question. We did video the sewer line, and it is, it's an older pipe, and it's all cracked up, and the pipes have become separated along the way. So instead of impacting the wetland, what we're proposing to do is with Eastern Piping Services going in and lining the main at that service so that we don't have to impact the wetland. So we'll plug it from within the main, and then they'll put flowable backfill within the section that we can't remove within the wetlands. And then we're proposing the new sewer line to go in the upland.
So I was wondering if any of you have that nice EV charging area in the back, there's the parking area, the patio and sidewalks. Can anything be made porous?
And I want to say no. I mean, anything could happen we could put it, but as far as porous concrete, the area in the back here, I'm using the wrong button, the area back here, that is actually a concrete pad for the charging stations themselves. So I don't believe we can use porous concrete back there because that is not so much of a sidewalk as a concrete pad for those. So we're using it structurally. The sidewalk along here, this was moved out of the buffer so that we did not have to do the porous pavement along this way. This is bituminous asphalt and not concrete. So in order to do porous pavement, you have to do a whole batch. You're getting charged for a whole batch of pavement rather than just that small section. As far as the pavement on the site, I don't recommend porous pavement for a gas station.
No, I understand that, but that's why I was suggesting sidewalk, patio, parking area, something like that.
The sidewalk along the building, I'd have to look into a little bit more. I know for maintenance reasons, they don't typically like to have them right against the building on a very frequented site like this, but I would have to do some more research on that.
So was there a maintenance plan for the jellyfish filter? Because I couldn't find it.
It is in our stormwater management report.
Okay.
Towards the back, there should be a stormwater management manual
Okay.
with that inside of it.
Okay, and then the final thing is that the fertilizer should be slow release.
Okay. I think that was one of the comments that Peter had put on the letter too, so. Slow release.
Thank you. Others? Yes, Abigail.
Can you talk about, see, the gas pumps are within the buffer and close anyway. Can you talk about, and I don't know where the storage tank is for the gasoline. Can you talk about, that's over there, okay.
And the buffer line
actually
is back here.
Okay. Can you talk about what protection you'll have for any leakage or anything?
Sure can. So I know you found them yourselves right now, but just for everybody's knowledge, the USTs, the underground storage tanks, are as far away as we could get them. They're over here, located over here. We are in the buffer a little bit over here with, I think, one of the dispensers. So around each one of these islands, there are positive limited barriers, also known as spill prevention grooves. So those are your typical grooves within the concrete. So that's our first line of defense. If anything, if say a couple of drops go on the concrete, or a little bit of, someone takes out the nozzle and has that handle on, that will contain that. Within the dispensers themselves, if a car still has the nozzle in it and drives off, there's a shear valve there, so that will disconnect it will automatically shut off the gas, so that is not a problem. Same thing with the actual dispensers themselves. If they get hit, again, it's automatic shut off. Underneath of each of these dispensers, there is a sump that can contain any fuel leakage as well. Another thing that we have is there is an alarm system. So each of these systems has an alarm system that detects minute losses in fuel. So if there is a minute loss in fuel, that will automatically shut down the system as well. So nothing can be going on underground that isn't alerted. Along with the pipes are double-walled pipes, so that if there is something wrong with that interior pipe, that exterior pipe will collect it. Same thing with the underground storage tanks. They're now required to be double-walled fiberglass tanks. So those will be per DES regulations on the tanks, and those have sumps underneath them as well. There are vapor prevention systems in it as well, so that we're not having the vapors of the gas going into the air as well. So there are multiple checks and balances within the system itself, and I can provide you literature on each one of these, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two of these, but I can provide a sheet of what is contained in these systems as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from others?
Yeah. Many people that come before us, that are close to wetlands in this situation, we ask them not just to use, right fertilizer, but if they could follow the standards of the Northeast Organic Farmers Association, and we can send you the standards. They're very flexible and just the best practices, and it's just for guidance so that you maintain the property with NOFA standards.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from those guys?
Samantha has her hand up, yes.
Okay, Samantha?
Yeah, I had a question about the snow storage. You had pointed out that it was on the there's a small little section on the left-hand side of the property. And then in Plan 4, it shows that it's in the front. There's a big area in the front by, I'm assuming, where the signage is, alongside the sidewalk. Are you using both? It seems to me that the one in the front is a much better location than the one on the left side.
So we always put as many storage areas as we think the plow truck is going to do. Most likely, they will use that side lot line. So that's why we wanted to make sure that depressed area is there. The front will be used too. However, if we get one of these huge snowstorms, you never know with New England, we do have to make sure that there's visibility to the site. So that area can only be used to a certain point. So that area in the front will be used for snow storage as well as the side there.
I think the front one is more optimal. So if the other one could be back up, as you said, if it gets to the visibility point, I think that would be something worth noting in your, plow and operation management plan.
Okay, Allison?
Do you ever take your snow off-site? Like if, you're talking about,
Yes. So there is a note on the plan that's saying if the snow areas are exceeded, that the snow has to be transported off-site.
Thank you. Jessica?
Not to harp on the snow piece too much, Sam asked a bit of my question, but just for my own clarification, so those two locations are where all the snow for the site will go unless it's taken off. Like, stuff isn't going to get pushed back against that chain link fence, correct?
So there's minimal area between the fence and the curb, so it would be hard for the plow trucks to actually do that without taking out the fence. So no, the snow storage wouldn't be in the back there. It would just be along the side and the front.
Great, thank you. And thank you for addressing this. That was one of my concerns last time you came before us. So I appreciate that you acknowledged it and made a plan.
And I just wanted to, on that note with the snow storage, is also the maintenance, the winter maintenance part of it. And I don't know if they've run into this in Manchester, but it would be great if they were a company or whoever is doing it in-house to be certified for Green Snow Pro. Because they're so close to that wetland, and none of your treatment is going to treat the chloride. So it would be definitely helpful.
Okay, we can look into that for the client as well.
The other questions I have to do with the planting going on. I think you have a plan on page 22 that you have. I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit, because I know you're also cutting down trees, and there's a lot of vegetation that comes up really close to the pavement that's existing, so.
Where is it? I'm trying to find it.
Let me go to, I did not memorize that one, so, and I do not have a green thumb, unfortunately, so let me go to that page. So I know in the memo that the staff put out, there was a mention of adding, just while I'm pulling this out, there was mention of adding plantings along where we're removing the pavement, especially, Peter, I'm guessing that you're.
That's the landscape plan, but I'll go to any plan you want.
No, this is fine.
Okay.
I'm guessing that the majority of buffer plantings that we want are back here. So that will be added as part of the staff recommendations. As far as, oh, thank you. That makes it a lot easier. As far as actual plantings go, we are moving, we're not removing a whole lot of trees. There'll be some tree removal within the area that we have the sewer line going in. We'll request for minimal trees to be removed for that sewer line installation. But as far as actual tree removal or buffer removal, there is a small section right here I mean, it's literally just at that corner of our charging equipment storage. The rest is, and then just a small amount up here. So as far as buffer goes, we're actually going to be increasing that. We're not going to be reducing that. We are taking down that bigger tree in the front here. I did have my landscaper look at it. One, it is close to the multi-use path, so some of the roots will be damaged with the installation of that. And two, he believed that it was close to its not at its life expectancy, but that we could be seeing some problems with it, so that to plant additional trees would be better than to have that one in the front. And so we are proposing trees up the front, in the front of the, you know, kind of street trees, and those are, give me, English oak, and those are going to be in front of the canopy, the island in front of the canopy. The other ones are spring snow crabapple, which is the crabapple that does not produce fruit. And those are going to be along the sides there. The one on, there is another, sorry, that one is getting mixed up here. So that is the one right here. And the reason why we don't have it produce fruit is because we don't want the fruit falling on the sidewalks and becoming a liability. The ones along the sides are honey locust. So what our landscaped architect tries to do is tries to vary the trees along the site so that if there is a disease with one of them, at least it's not hitting all of the trees on the site. We are proposing different shrubs, inkberry and dogwood, which are native species, spirea, low yew, which is a typical of a commercial site, as well as some perennials and grasses, the daylily, and some ornamental grasses along the site. Those are primarily around the building, with some around the sign up here. And like I said before, we will be adding more buffer plantings along this edge and more back here, where the pavement will be replaced by buffer.
Okay, and then on the maintenance of that, do you know how, I mean, I didn't see it in the maintenance plan, but I'm guessing it's in there of, you know, how often you're gonna, if there's grasses, are you mowing, are you just gonna mulch, or any of that?
So, Brad, do you want to come up and explain? Do you want to come up and explain what you're doing with the other stores? What your maintenance plan is for this?
So in our other locations.
Do you just want to introduce
Oh,
yourself?
sorry, Brad Purnell with the Granite State Convenience.
Thank
So
you.
in other locations, we engage third-party contractors to manage that, and so it would be mowed, I think it's weekly, and maybe there's a skip week in the spring and in the fall. There would be irrigation, and same thing with the plowing. We would hire a local contractor in this area to manage all of that, and they receive all of the plans and notes and know where snow storage is and things like that. So we don't manage that in-house. In terms of self-performing the work, we outsource it.
Okay, you don't manage it in-house, and
No.
but you have instructions. Because, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, you know, making the buffer bigger, but you're making the buffer bigger with landscaping, but maybe not. I don't know if you can explain that to me. Is there any, because there's a large natural buffer right now?
Yeah, so what would happen is that pavement, it's behind, the buffer that we're talking about is over behind the fence. I don't see that as being mowed. I see that as being seeded, and as recommended, we'll do a wetland seed mix back. We'll change that to a wetland seed mix. For maintenance-wise, that shouldn't need to be mowed. That should be left natural behind that fence. The only maintenance that we may have to do is where the outlet is, just to keep that clear of any sediment. Okay. Along the side, you probably will get some mowing to the grass just along the pavement, but again, we can use that wetland seed mix. If it's the preference of the board, we could leave that as non-mowed and in natural state, and with just some some trimming along the edge, with a weed whacker or whatever. And as far as buffer plantings, those would be, our landscape architect would pick plantings that are native and no or little maintenance needed.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
I would just like to suggest that you might want to just mow the areas that you were talking about, like behind the fence and along the side where the swale is, once a year. And the reason that I say that is because you can start getting invasive seeding.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Comments? Those guys are good? Virtual?
I'm sorry. No hands up.
No hands up. Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Just to kind of go back to the conversation about the oil tank storage. And I'm curious, all the treatment that you described, the oil water separator, that's to treat anything that's on the surface, right? That's sort of stormwater treatment.
Correct.
Is there any, so what does happen when things maybe leak out of the tanks themselves? What is I know there's a shut off to stop it from going any further,
Yeah.
but is there anything to do with anything that's subsurface?
If there is a leak in one of the tanks, maybe there's a malfunction in the tank or something like that, there is a dual wall. So if there's a leak in the first tank, that second wall will capture it. And there is a sump as well that will capture any oil. So there are multiple layers of protection before anything happens.
Okay.
On that note of the double, is there some, sorry if I don't know this already, but if the inside wall fails on one of those, is there something, a sensor that lets them know?
Yes.
So that it can be dealt with before anything happens to
If there's a
the outside?
drop in product, the whole system
Okay.
shuts
I
off.
figured there
Yeah.
was, but I just
And then there's
thought I'd ask.
yeah.
Okay.
Do you mind just describing, you described a sump system. What does that actually look like? Is that like a catchment, kind of like a separate basin or just a pump?
So there's between the walls, there is area for the oil in between.
The two layers of the
The
tank?
two layers of the tank.
Okay.
I believe there is another sump, but I'd have to go on the plans for that. I don't have them with me, but I can find that out on how much that would contain.
Any other questions at all? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? Allison?
Well, I just wanted to check to see if I had the stipulations right.
Okay.
So, so follow NOFR standards. The primary snow storage is in the front and secondaries on the northwest side depressed area. That whoever does the plowing should be Snow Pro certified. And that we wanted to increase the number of trees where the pavement was removed on the northwest side. Is that correct?
Yeah, unless you want anything on the maintenance part of it, but on the maintenance part of it, the once a year mowing but
Following
That
NOFA
was yours.
standards.
and no
That was the first thing
She
I
did
said.
say that, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you.
On the second one, Allison, you said first plow to the front, second plow to the
Yeah, the
side.
storage is in front and the secondaries on the northwest side in a depressed area that was
And what was the fourth one again? I'm sorry.
Snow Pro certification.
The fourth one.
1, 2, 3. Oh, increase the number of trees in the area where the pavement was removed.
Increase the number of trees. Is that what you said? Okay, thanks.
Did you want to add, Allison, the, what is it, changing the seed and, where it says seed and loam to the wetland
Mix.
seed mix?
Yep.
I don't know if that's necessary in there, and then your stipulation of mowing it once a year. And then the other thing I didn't know is if we wanted to add making the patio permeable, at least the portion that's in the buffer. with, whatever permeable pavers or gravel or, I don't know. It doesn't need to be anything specific, just porous if possible.
Sure, I asked that, but got a lot of resistance.
I think it might have been just the area where the cars are parked,
Okay.
but other patio areas exist.
Yeah, I feel like the patio should be more simple, and it doesn't have to be the porous concrete if that requires a whole batch. There's a lot of other materials they can use for a patio.
Is there an issue if it's against the building now?
So just to let you know, the actual patio is this area here. That isn't within the buffer. The buffer line actually comes in right here.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't really see that, but I
Oh,
believe
sorry.
you.
Not in the buffer, huh? Okay, so you've got like 4 stipulations?
I think there were 5.
5. Do you want,
What was the fifth one?
The wetland seed mix and mowing it once a year.
Okay.
I had one question about whether or not we need to add the fertilizer. No, just slow
The
release.
slow release for, well, I figured that if we're following NOFA standards, that should take care of it.
Yeah, it would take care of it.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
And the Green Snow Pro certification, was that a requirement or a recommendation?
I suggested that it should be a requirement, but if you
Required.
think that
Okay.
it's better to.
No, I just wanted to
It's condition.
get my notes right.
Staff memo also includes this request about signage along the wetland edge. I don't know if that's,
For the maintenance people,
Oh,
maybe?
no, the wetland edge, I put in my memo that they could put signs to show where the wetland edge was. If you guys, that's up to you guys.
You want to add that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, 6. Do you want to?
Okay, you want me to rattle them off?
Sure.
Great.
Okay.
You want to?
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the planning board, the application for Lafayette Road convenience and gas station, with the following stipulations. So 1 is that they should follow NOFA standards. 2 is that the primary snow storage be in the front of the building and secondary on the northwest side in the depressed area. That the person doing the plowing is Snow Pro certified. That there's an increase in the number of trees where the pavement was removed. That a wetland seed mix be applied and it's only mowed once a year. That there should be signage at the edge of the wetland. And we would recommend that there be porous pavement used for the patio or some sort of pervious material.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Abigail. Discussion? No?
I think it's an improvement over Burger King, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I did have a question, though, about the snow in the front, though, because there are a bunch of trees in there, stuff. So how does that,
Well, they said that they were going to put it there anyway.
right,
So,
but if that's the
I assume
primary,
that they would
how does that
accommodate.
logistically work? If they're-
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
and the snow is removed off-site once it gets to the point where it's
Yep.
blocking
That's
things.
true,
so.
yep, yep, got it,
Okay.
okay.
And we
I'm
will,
going to do a roll call.
yes, please.
Okay, so the vote and the stipulations were read out. Lynn?
yes.
Yes. Abigail?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Yes.
Barbara? Ted?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
Motion passes. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your presentation. The next item on the agenda is 70 Pleasant Point Drive. Somebody here to speak to that?
You got a separate one? Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Corey Caldwell of TF Moran. With me today is the owner and applicant, Rebecca Rowe of Katera LLC. We also have Eric Burke, our landscape architect with Terrain Planning and Design. And we have Ben Auger, a builder from Auger Building Company, and Jason Cook, a project engineer with TF Moran. Katera currently owns the 3-bedroom house and ranch at 70 Pleasant Point Drive on a 0.642 acre lot. The lot's at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's mostly cleared and contains 6 mature trees. Property is located in the general residence zone, and it abuts the back channel of the Piscataqua River on the south and the west. The home is part of a residential subdivision created in the 50s, and the home that exists on the lot was built in 1957. The existing home, shown in brown on our colored site plan, has a footprint of 1,971 square feet. It's an older style home with low ceilings. It has some structural foundation issues, and it's not very energy efficient. The applicant is proposing a new net zero home with a footprint of 2,343 square feet. The new home will contain 2 floors with a permeable patio to the south, shown in gray on our color drawing. Because this will be a net zero home, the energy efficiency of this home far exceeds what is currently there today. The new home will be moved back an additional 15 feet from the back bay of the channel as to what exists today. The closest point of this new home is about 54 feet from the water's edge. It currently sits, the home that sits there today is currently at 38.5 feet away from the water's edge. The lot is mostly open, contains vegetated slopes between the lawn and the river. The property has 336 feet of frontage on the back channel of the Piscataqua River, and the home sits on an elevated plateau that perches 14 feet above the river. Now, if you go to the site at the end of the cul-de-sac, you have to go upstairs to get to that level, and it's a beautiful site that overlooks the back channel of the river. Most of the property is within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. Between the home and the river is a steep slope, which in some areas ranges from 60 to 70%. This slope is vegetated, however, it contains a mix of ornamental, native, and invasive species. The toe of the slope is broken ledge and some riprap. It's a pretty well armored site. We believe ledge secures it well from the channel of the river, and its elevation of 14 feet above the river gives it plenty protection from any storm damage that the river can serve up. We're trying to improve the aesthetic value of the site and its environmental impact on the back channel of the river. This is being accomplished in 5 ways. First, we're moving the new home further from the river, which creates more space between the top of the slope and the home, which allows us to infill it with some plantings. There are on sheets C3 and C04 in your packet, there are red lines on those drawings which represent the footprint of the existing home. Sheet C03 also shows the existing patio, the steps, and the driveway shown in a red line, with the proposed home and patio and driveway shown in the back. And when you look at those sheets, you can see just how far this new home is being pushed back further from the water's edge. The home is pushed back 15 feet from the water. The steps are pushed back 30 feet from the water, and the new driveway is pushed back an additional 20 feet from the water's edge. This additional space allows us more room to install native plantings as shown on our landscape plan in your packets. The second way we're improving the site is with a reduction of impervious coverage. The existing home, driveway, steps, patio, etc., and all those impervious features account for approximately 3,600 square feet, or 13% of the lot. We're reducing impervious coverage by 96 square feet, or down to 12.7% coverage of the lot. Third, and what I consider most important improvement, is we're improving stormwater management. If you go to the site today, you'll see, you go up this plateau and the roof is guttered, but the the roof runoff comes down the downspouts into a 4-inch PVC pipe, and then they all directly discharge right to the river. And we found 3 points of discharge coming out the bank to the river. The rest of the site's flow from the patio, the steps, and the driveway, sheet flows across the lot, directly discharging into the back channel of the river. We're reducing impervious coverage, which will reduce some runoff. We're also capturing the roof runoff and diverting it to the pervious patio in the back via an underdrain. So all the roof runoff on the south side is captured with downspouts, and then there's a perforated pipe that runs through that pervious patio in the back, which is a series of stone, and infiltrates in where we're getting treatment and not discharging directly to the river. On the north side of the home, we're collecting roof runoff via a stone drip edge, which then flows into a rain garden on the north side. There is an overflow protection from that rain garden, which would discharge to the south, but most of all of the roof runoff is being captured and stored and infiltrated on site. We did a series of test pits to make sure we've got good soil, well-drained soil, and we do. The site is a good choice for infiltration, and we're proposing all stormwater management to infiltrate, be treated on site, which is significantly reducing the discharge to the Piscataqua River. 25% of the roof runoff flows to the stone drip edges, then overland to the rain garden. 34% of the roof runoff flows to the drip edges on the southeast corner of the house, which contain landscapes with native plantings, and 25% runs overland to the rain garden. The other way we're improving stormwater is we're capturing it and treating it via a new pervious driveway. The driveway that's there today is pavers, but it wasn't constructed of a pervious nature. There's no joints, and there's no layers of stone or adequate layers of stone, if you will, below that driveway. This driveway captures some site runoff. It also captures any stormwater that would flow or directly onto the driveway, and allows that to infiltrate and get some treatment. The fourth and fifth ways we're improving this site is with many plantings, as shown on the landscape plan. Post-construction, this site will contain much more native vegetation than what exists today, and we're also managing the invasive species on the slopes. I'm going to ask Eric from Terrain Planning to come up and take you briefly through that landscape plan and how we're improving the invasive species on that site, and then I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Buck. I'm a landscape architect with Terrain Planning and Design. So the slope that the buffer that runs in the southwest, south, and southeast portion of the site is a combination, as Corey said, of some invasives, some ornamentals, and some natives. It's kind of an overgrown mess there. If you've been to the site. Invasives that we've identified there are Asiatic bittersweet, Japanese knotweed, multiflora rose, and fuzzy deutzia. Majority of these are small young plants that are sort of struggling for survival in that zone. So the idea with any of the invasive removal, given the degree of the slope that's there, is minimal soil impact. So the smaller plants can be pulled out with the less aggressive roots. Anything over 1 inch would have a cut and dab method recommended for their removal. The ornamentals that are there are also going to be cut back and controlled. As I mentioned, a lot of them are sort of overgrown and beyond their usefulness. And then we have a large native palette of plant material that's going to go along that slope area, as well as in the plant beds that are surrounding the new home and the front entranceway. So part of our charge was to develop a landscape plan that is as low maintenance as possible, and so that leads itself to a very native palette, even in what would normally be an ornamental bed around the foundation. So we're looking at things like shadblow serviceberries, various summer sweet cultivars, silky and gray dogwoods, the winterberries, Virginia rose. We're also looking at a palette of native perennials and ground covers that'll make up a carpet along the mulch beds, with the intent that these areas aren't things to be remulched every year, as you may expect in ornamental beds, but creates a ground cover matting that allows for moisture retention and then sort of snuffs out any weeds and invasives that may want to grow in those zones.
Thank you.
One other thing to mention, as Corey said, the slope area is fairly ledgy, so we have some concerns about soil depth and proper planting installation there. So that's why in your packet we have the one method of grow socks. So any area that has minimal soil, our plan is to do either live staking or plug installation in those slope zones, again, to minimize the amount of erosion that may occur during planting.
Okay, thank you.
We realize you're just seeing this for the first time. Our main purpose today is to present the project, explain the benefits, allow you an opportunity to give us some feedback, concerns. We'd like to address those concerns into revised plans. We have started state permitting, wetland and shoreline permitting. We'd like to do that once, and with any feedback we get from this commission, we'll revise those permits and submit. We do realize we do have to come back when the state permit is submitted, but we were hoping to get some feedback from the commission prior to submitting that wetlands permit. So that concludes our presentation, and we'd certainly like to hear any suggestions you have or feedback that you think may improve the project.
Thank you, Corey. Thanks for mentioning that, because you saw the memo, the staff memo too. Was going to be my next question, so
Sure.
That helps a lot. Appreciate it. Allison, you have questions?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to suggest was potentially rain barrels, just to capture some of that water.
I'm sorry, rain barrels?
Rain barrels could potentially capture some of the water. And then there are a couple things shown on the plan, like there was one thing that said something about blasting. Are you doing blasting on this site?
Only if necessary. I don't know that it's going to be necessary. When you go to the site and you see down at the toe of the slope, the ledge is kind of shaley, broken up. We think it can be broken up when we excavate for the new foundation. Keep in mind that the new house is being pushed back further, and that what we don't know is what exists under that ground when we push this site back further. So we think it can be broken up, but just in case, it may have to be blasted out.
And then the other thing is that you have a dock and you have steps and you have nothing that's connecting them. And
Yeah.
usually when we see a dock, there's a separate proposal, and we have no information about it here.
Yeah, that was just intended to show as a placeholder. With the state permitting, the dock will be part of the state permitting. Just wanted to put this commission on notice that a dock is proposed. It won't be in that location. It'll probably be further to the southwest, but that will be part of the state application, which you'll get a chance to see.
Is there a 25-foot vegetated buffer?
There's an existing 25-foot vegetated buffer, yeah, and that's the slope, that steep slope that's out there. We're not proposing to cut anything in that buffer. We're only proposing invasive species management, and if anything, if there's an area where there's lawn in that buffer, which is very sparse, but there is a small area, we'd be planting in that area. So if anything, we're increasing vegetation in that 25-foot buffer, and not proposing removal of anything in it other than invasive plants.
Another thing I would like to suggest is that if there are lawn areas, which I'm not sure they're indicated here, eco-grass is something that you don't have to mow on a regular basis, and it gets to be about 5 inches or so, and then it just sort of flops over, and it's just very, you talk about low maintenance, that's very low maintenance, and it's nice not to have, unless you're using an electric mower, of course, but the gas and oil from that kind of cutting equipment isn't good near the water.
Okay.
And then in the notes to the contractor, you should have the slow-release fertilizer, and that we like to have everyone follow the NOFA standards if possible.
Great, thank you. Yes, Abigail?
Me?
Yeah.
From the drawings and the thing that's up, it looks like the green, the kind of medium green is all lawn area, correct?
Correct. That's existing lawn area, too.
That's existing.
Yep.
Do you have a, okay, so, but that's the new house plan. So, yeah. So you're not increasing, but you're not decreasing the lawn area.
We're decreasing.
You're-
Yeah. If you see those darker green with the reddish, brownish circles in
Yep,
them,
yep.
those are new landscape beds, which
Okay.
is mostly over, there is some landscaping there now, but there's not that much. Those landscape beds are over existing lawn.
Okay.
So post-construction, the lawn area will be less than what exists today.
Okay, but you still have a lot of lawn area inside the 50-foot buffer zone, really?
Correct.
Okay. The little deck out in the sort of the corner right on the edge of the water for where they both are coming together,
That circle?
that's,
Yeah.
that's brand new, correct?
Correct.
What is the lighting plan for all of this outdoor stuff, the circle and then around the house? Because that's, habitat is an important part of a buffer zone, and that looks like that could be a lot of light pollution.
Yeah. There's no plans that I'm aware of to light that sitting area. There'll be lights, obviously, for the patio, building-mounted lights, but there's no lights other than building-mounted lights proposed.
Okay. The stairs that you have down to the proposed dock, the existing stairs are really close to the end of Pleasant Point Drive now, right? So they've moved more toward, yeah.
No, those stairs are what exists today.
Oh, they are? Those are the
Yeah,
ones? Okay.
those are
all
wooden
right.
stairs, yeah.
Okay. They look
And-
pretty cool when I saw them.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you go down those stairs, from those stairs left is all salt marsh. From those stairs right is kind of barren, rocky beach.
Yep. Okay.
The dock is certainly going to go to the right, more probably closer to the point, but that will be detailed on the state submittal. We're not going anywhere near the salt marsh with the dock.
Yeah, okay. I think that's all my questions for now, but.
Thank you. And was it Samantha?
Yep.
Yeah, just to kind of harp on everyone else's point, I would probably like to see less lawn and more plantings, maybe a few more trees. I know you're taking one out on the northwest corner of the house that I'd like to see replanted somewhere. And then I know the dock isn't in front of us yet, but just to kind of get an idea of where it's going to go, there's a architectural rendering that's showing it, coming out, I guess that would be north or south west, kind of coming off in between those two trees. Is that where it's planning on going?
Possibly. We're still discussing the best location for the dock. It
Okay.
hasn't been determined. We just know that where there's salt marsh is not an option. And what that leaves is where it's shown to,
Yep.
if you're looking at the plan, where it's shown and west are our options. We cannot go from where it's shown east, because that's all
Okay.
salt marsh.
Okay. Yeah, so then I guess my major thing would just be to try to reduce lawn even further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, Lynn?
You included this whole brochure about the green locks, I'm curious where that would go, and is that just for planting, or is it also for stability of the shoreline?
It's a combination of both. The plant bed, the buffer area that's along the 25-foot buffer has sort of a flat zone of planting, and then it sort of slopes down onto the top of the ledge. And so there's a balance of how much soil disruption do we want to do on those slopes versus providing an opportunity for this native plant material to grow. So we've had success with these grow stalks that get staked into the slope and provide a growing medium within a filtration tube that allows for the native plants to get a foothold without excavating into what might be an unstable slope in order for plant material to grow. So it's kind of a combination of slope stabilization as well as just providing a controllable growing medium that isn't going to erode over time.
Right. So where would it go exactly on the plan?
So if it goes anywhere, it would be along that 25-foot buffer, so within some of those dark green dots on the southeast, south, and southwestern portion of the slope.
Not the salt marsh side, obviously.
Not the salt marsh side, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I had a question, actually. Well, I had a question about that. What is that made of? I looked at the brochure, but then I also looked online. I got two different answers.
So some of them, the filtration tubes are synthetic material. We've used hay wattles before that are stuffed with that, so the hay eventually breaks down, and at that point, the roots of whatever has been plugged in or live staked have kind of taken over.
Okay, so not using synthetics? Or
Not using synthetics, yeah.
That's the intention
That's the
here?
intent, correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? What?
Not from
Nothing?
these guys right
Nothing
now.
there?
This is kind of a
Yes.
different topic, but is there a septic system here, or are you on city sewer? What's
City,
It's city sewer.
city sewer?
city
Okay,
water
just
and
curious.
sewer.
I had a question about the patio out front, that little circle thing. So I didn't have a question, I had a comment. That's pretty intrusive in the buffer area. It's something that I would not recommend or approve of at this point. I think you're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit with putting something down by the water there, right in the buffer. You know, pervious, impervious, it's still going to have people down there, and so that's something that was really a red flag for me
Okay.
on that.
I can understand that, and I think in the memo it was suggested or was asked of the commission if they felt a site walk was necessary. And part of the reason we like the site walk is when you get out there, you can visualize where that patio is proposed, and then you hit this large, dense clump of plantings, and then you're into like a 70 to 80% slope down to the water's edge. So it's almost like, you know, the water's here, you come up 12 feet in that area or so, and then it levels out into the lawn area. So though it looks like it's on the water's edge on the plan view, it's really not an opportunity to go from that patio to the water's edge, because it's a very steep, dense slope, rocky slope. So for that reason, you know, I hear your concern, and if it was flat, I think there'd be impact to the water's edge, but for those reasons, we felt it was a possibility, but certainly open to suggestions.
Okay. Thanks. So other comments?
Well, I think about that patio, if they would move it away just a bit further,
Yeah.
closer to the other plantings on the other side maybe, instead of having it be on the 20-foot point.
Further away from the water is what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of sets a precedent.
But I agree that I think a site walk would be beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, too. Any other suggestions before we make I think, a motion to postpone, or are we all set with calling? I think we're going to have to make a motion to postpone.
Yeah.
So, anything else? Any other suggestions of what we're looking for? So it sounds like, yes.
Just one background question. Is there a homeowner in mind, or are you developing this to put on the market?
Yeah, the homeowner's here.
Okay, just curious,
Yeah.
in terms of like how that conversation unfolds. Okay.
Sure.
Since we're not having a discussion, I'll ask. I went to check out the property. It looks like no one's living there right now. Is this a newish purchase, or?
This year, yeah, it was purchased,
Okay.
and the homeowner just moved out last weekend.
Yeah, okay. And,
The previous homeowner, excuse me.
yeah. One of my concerns too, but since we're continuing, I'm just going to throw this out since we won't be discussing it among ourselves. Right now, a lot of that area is one story, kind of the ranch houses. And I feel like a second story right on that kind of promontory is, I don't know, it felt, especially since it's inside the 100-foot buffer zone, I felt like that was maybe, you know, I appreciate the fact that you're pushing it back, but you're also adding a lot of paving, and then you add the second story, and it's on a promontory, and just sort of in terms of habitat area, you're, you know, adding another layer for bird strikes or, you know, whatever else, but just lights coming out into the harbor, that's more light pollution. It's higher up, it's, so, I don't know, that was something that struck me, because that whole area, there are a few two-story houses. One's just actually pretty nearby, just down the road, but most of it's one story, and as a result, I don't think it's as invasive in terms of an environmental standpoint, I think, but I don't know. Anyway, so.
Sure, if I could address.
That was a
our-
concern, not
if
that
I-
you're going to redesign the house, because.
Yeah, so the owners are a family of 4 and need more space than what's there today. And there's 2 ways to accomplish that, right? There's building a larger footprint
Right.
than what exists, which goes out, which would expand the buffer impact or go up. We are staying within the zoning height restriction of 35 feet. We are less than that. So we felt, you know, as designers, that better to go up than increase that footprint and that environmental impact. And for that reason, we chose to add the second story.
Corey, yeah, I was just saying, suggest, you know, consider some of the environmental concerns with the bird strikes and the lighting and stuff like that associated
Sure.
with it, not change to 2 stories, but would be my suggestion. Yeah,
Samantha Sam.
Sam?
Yeah, on Abigail's point about, you know, the 2 stories, there's, you know, looking out from the house, obviously they want as much of an unobstructed view as possible, but also from the water, you know, again, like Abigail was saying, being that it's kind of raised up, and again, to my point of adding more trees around there does kind of obscure it from the water view, and it would help block some of that potential light pollution from adding a second story, and just maybe help it all blend in a little bit more into the landscape. That would be just my only other suggestion.
Good idea. Okay, do we want to do a motion? Allison?
I'll make a motion that we postpone this application, a vote on this application until after site walk.
Thank you. Second?
Could I just say, can we postpone it to next month's meeting, just so we keep it clear in the
Okay,
record?
Sure. Postpone till next month's meeting.
For the site walk on the second.
We'll do the site walk for sure, but
Yeah.
Abby Gale? Seconded. Discussion? No discussion? And you guys want to do a roll call vote? Ted?
Yes.
Lynn?
So I'm saying yes to postponing?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, yes, for me too.
Yes.
Yes for Allison, yes for the chair. Jessica?
Yes, and I'm sorry I have to go now.
Okay, thank you. And Sam?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank
So
you.
we'll see you next time or at the site walk.
Could we set a date for the site walk while we're here?
Can you do that, Peter?
I don't know. We could try.
I don't know, I don't have my calendar, but.
Yeah, I don't either.
I can reach out to you after the meeting.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fine.
Do
Just,
you have dates in mind?
well, just, we certainly want to come back next month.
Okay.
And so we'd want it as soon as possible so we can make the revisions and
Okay.
incorporate these comments and any site walk comments. The deadline for submission for next month is June 29th, which is 3 weeks. So, you know, preferably in a week, but I understand we're all busy, and you know, we've just asked for it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have 81 Taft Road. Anybody here to speak to that? Thank you.
Hello, members of the commission. My name is Dave Cicalone. I'm here from Yankee Construction, and I am the general contractor on the project, representing Mr. Tom Maida. Tom and his wife Angela own the property. Do you have the
Oh, sorry.
The site plan?
I do, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
great.
Behind
You're
on
trying to
it.
keep up with everything.
The project is a small 235 square foot addition. Their property is located on a corner lot on the corner of Elwyn and Taft Road. There was some wetlands identified on I believe the town-owned property across the road. So the buffer extends across the northeast corner of the property. I believe there is currently about a little over 1,900 square feet of wetland buffer that goes across the northeast corner of the lot. The previously existing home, about 160 square feet of that was within that buffer, and then this new addition would actually add exactly 17 square feet of impact to that wetland buffer. Very small amount. As you can see, there's actually a small gable detail on that bump out facing Elwyn. The roof line kind of bifurcates where it intersects with the wetland buffer, so all the rain that hits the essentially west side of that roof would then be directed back towards the kind of side yard, backyard. There are planting beds along the Elwyn Road side of the house that would be extended along the addition. Should help with any catchment of any storm water that hits the roof there. And when we, as just a general practice, our foundation systems, footings are always set on washed crushed stone, and then backfilled with a combination of washed stone, sand, and aggregate. So basically providing excellent infiltration around the foundation from such a kind of de minimis amount of water that would be running off that 17 square foot. It would be hard to imagine it would not be captured by just essentially the aggregate and void space in that aggregate around that foundation.
Okay. Questions? Allison?
Yeah, so what is that rectangle that's on the Elwyn Road side there? It's just,
Oh, what that is, unfortunately, just when the PDF was, that was a small call-out box on the survey map,
okay,
identifying
so
the site.
there's nothing there?
No, it just
Okay.
didn't print well.
There is a maple tree there. Is that being removed or is that staying?
The maple tree actually has been removed already.
It's been removed already?
Yep.
Okay. And I don't see any plantings on this plan, and I think that there should be.
Yeah, I guess we're not a landscape architecture firm, but there is already a landscape bed along the Elwyn side, and Tom, actually, we were just talking about it. He plans to continue that landscaping bed just for aesthetic purposes right along that Elwyn's side of the house. So I think the current bed is probably about 3 feet in width. It's, your general kind of foundation plants.
And so are you saying that you anticipate that the water to come off the gable and then just be infiltrated into the ground? What do you have around the edge? Is there just a stone catchment area, or?
Yeah, we will backfill that foundation with stone and aggregate, and that would be at least a foot to 2 feet off.
So
that.
no downspouts or anything like that?
No, there are currently no gutters on the house on that side.
Well, I think that gutters are useful to avoid having a lot of runoff. We've had a lot of heavy rain situations. I don't know what the situation is on this particular lot, but particularly if you do have planting beds, if you have rain barrels to catch the water, if there's a downspout and you can put it to a rain barrel, then you can use that water to water whatever plantings you put in. Mm-hmm. I think that there should be additional plantings, as I mentioned.
Sure. We did check the USDA NRCS soil survey map. The property is located on Sandy Loam. I've done other actually addition projects in the vicinity of that home, and I dug myself there and verified. I worked as a hydrogeologist for 15 years. I have a graduate degree in hydrogeology, and it is well-drained soils in that area.
Thank you.
More questions, comments? Yes, Ted?
Yeah, this is really a question for the homeowner. As many property owners, when they're close to wetlands, agree to follow organic land management standards on their property. And there's one organization, it's the Northeast Farmers, Organic Farmers Association, and they have a very good, we can get it to you, it's a very general guidelines, and we just ask that you follow for ones that can give you some real guidance on native plantings and other things. It's a very useful book itself, you know. So we'd ask that you try to follow organic land management standards when you maintain the property in the future.
Yeah, sure. I'm Tom Maida. Yeah, if you send me that information, I'd be happy to
Sure.
to take a look at it. Share it with my neighbors too, who are also on that.
Yeah, we'll get it to you, sure.
Other questions? No. From those guys? Peter?
Oh, sorry. Sam's hand is not up.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah,
Jess
and
left.
Jess left.
Yep.
So. I don't think I had any questions, other than the bit about the plantings, which you seem to try to cover, I think, pretty much. It does say in here wetland buffer plantings, but that's your intention, I think. No,
It says it on Doucette's map.
it doesn't say wetland. It keeps running into the, never mind.
Okay.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. It
Yeah.
runs into the other application on my, so never mind.
No, but it would be very simple to add some plantings along the foundation there. Yep.
Yeah. So, no other questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve this project. Am I doing this right? Are there any stipulations people want to add?
I don't think, Allison.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the planning board of this application with the following stipulations: that they follow NOFR standards, and that they increase the plantings in the buffer area.
All right, I'll second it.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Abby.
Want me to do a roll call?
Let me just check on discussion.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is there any discussion?
Not from Sam.
It's a shame that tree got removed.
Yeah. That's a big tree.
Love to see
There was
that
actually,
tree go
from
in.
the previous homeowners, there was like an old satellite dish that was totally ingrown in the tree, and the tree was like actually pretty dead.
Be good to put another tree in. They absorb carbon.
I believe, as part of the project with the dimensional variance, the fence had to be removed, so, I mean, there'd be a lot of options for them to probably add some trees or different things for just privacy barriers.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's part of our future plans once we, the construction is done.
Thank you. All right. Roll call vote. And I'll
So-
start with, go ahead.
You want to go?
I'll do it, yeah, sure. Sam?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Abby?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is 11 Fletcher Street, one I keep running into when I scroll down.
Sorry, Alex, I'll get that up in a second.
That's okay.
Where's my- Oh, there it is. I don't want that. Okay. You just want the site plan?
I guess the site pictures first would be great if we could do that.
The site photos?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And then I guess,
Oh, there's
Okay,
one
page.
before that?
yeah, there's,
Oh,
yeah, that
there we
one.
go,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay,
Thanks. I'm Alex Ross, engineer and surveyor. I made the plans for this site. I'm here with the owner, Lanson LaChance. This is a really simple project. What we have here is a vacant lot off the end of Fletcher Street. And what we've been required to do, which is typically not required for any residential lot, is DPW wanted us to do a stormwater management plan and a drainage study. So we've been making plans toward that goal, meeting with DPW, and the plans that we have here are the end result, and they reflect the recommendations of the DPW. So you can see this first sheet here shows the site, which is surrounded by houses and a wooded wetland buffer area. If we can go to the next sheet. So right now, this parcel has been cleared. And up on Fletcher, there is some ledge, and then the site slopes down the hill towards Benson, the next street, and then off into a wooded wetland buffer area. And then if we can go to the next one. And in working with DPW, we actually had a bunch of different design options. Our first goal was to stay completely out of the 100-foot wetland buffer and not do anything in there. But because of the site topography, DPW wanted us to put our stormwater under drain outlet, which is essentially, I'm sure you've all seen, like a foundation drain for a house. So it'd be a small 4-inch pipe with some stone around it. They really wanted that in that back corner where you can see here where it's not a steep grade and headed directly towards the wetland that is in that wooded area behind there. So now, Peter, if we could go to the plans. So on this existing conditions plan, so this is our parcel up here. You can see there's some ledge outcrops up by Fletcher, and then this site slopes down the hill down here. You can actually see that there's a house, the neighbor's house way down here that's very close to, we did delineate the wetlands and they're out here. So we have our 100-foot buffer cutting across the site right there. And then if you could skip to the next sheet. So this is our site plan. You can see we've cited the new house and all the structures, the driveway, the deck, everything beyond the 100-foot buffer. So there's really nothing in the 100-foot buffer. But then DPW did want this storm under drain located in that corner. So we've done our best to design that so that it's minimal impact. It would just be putting in a 4-inch drain line that as it comes down that corner, it would run for about 12 or 13 feet perforated in a stone trench. And then there would be an area of stone where it daylights. And then we've also shown some wetland buffer plantings around that area in green. And this site has gone through a bunch of different design options. While there is ledge on the site, there is also decent soil on the site. So we did design a septic system for the parcel, a leach field. because as it happens, the city sewer and water does not come all the way down Fletcher. So we were able to do that. That was approved by the state. And we did find that the soils were a 4-minute per inch perk, which is pretty good, well-drained soils. Just by the location of that and the house, the owner has decided to actually go down Fletcher and then into Sims to tie into the city sewer and water, which is what DPW prefers. So there won't be any septic on site. It'll just be that house. We have done an extensive stormwater management plan and a drainage study to review all the different storms. That has been submitted to DPW. So it's really getting a very thorough review, which is typically not required for a residential parcel. And very minimal impact in the buffer. It'd be 550 square feet, but that would really be all temporary because there's, when we're done, there's going to be a perforated pipe that drains to daylight with a small area of stone. So there's no structure really in the wetland buffer. So I think that covers just about everything. I'd be happy to go over any of the design features and review any questions that the homeowner could help out with as well.
Thank you. Allison?
So are those two small green blobs the buffer plantings you're talking about?
Yes.
So the remainder of that property is going to be lawn?
Well, it could be a mix. Right now, that area to the west is a wooded wetland buffer.
But to the west of the property, I mean, this lot has been completely cleared of all the trees that were on it.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be great to see some trees go in there. It would be great to see not so much lawn. I'm not sure about where the water is running off the house, but have you thought about rain barrels?
We could add some rain barrels.
And just taking a treed area and the amount of carbon that it absorbs and just turning it into grass really isn't going to do anything for the environment. And grass in a sensitive area such as right next to this wetland, now granted, there may be, heavily wooded area where the wetland is, but it starts with this piece of property. And so seeing an increase in the number of plantings in the buffer area would really be appreciated. And as we've said to every other project that's come before us, following the NOFA standards is really important as well, particularly in a sensitive area like this.
Yes.
Did you have a planting plan for that?
Well, we wanted to see you. I mean, we've only shown those two small areas. We didn't have a full landscape plan for the whole parcel. And I think the end result would be, a mix of woodland, trees, shrubs, and grass. Part of that backyard is steep, so it probably wouldn't make sense to make that whole parcel grass. You wouldn't want to mow it.
Right. Yeah, and my other concern is what I brought up with the others is that we don't really know what you're going to do in that little buffer planting area. And in addition to what Allison was asking, it's, if you plant a couple of bushes and then you mow around them, it helps, but we're not adding any kind of, real protection as far as, natural infiltration and things like that. It's going to be a, you know, a lawn area that's going to be a vehicle going on it to mow it, and it's just, it helps if there's a plan or an idea of what's going to be done.
Sure.
So, yes, Abigail.
My strongest point when I saw that lot was, why was everything in that buffer zone cut down and destroyed? It seems to me, is that okay? I thought you have to get permission to cut anything down in a buffer zone. Is that whole lot is clear cut, ground up, and even a tree, a white pine off the corner, I don't even think it's on the property. It was outside the orange markers. That was cut down. So, and that was probably a 2.5 foot diameter tree, I think. So, and there's an oak one up by the street that's still there that has all the wood chips piled up against it, which, side point, I don't think it's good for the health of a tree to have, 4 or 6 feet of wood chips up against it. I think the bacterial and insect invasion into the bark can destroy the tree. But anyway, so that disturbed me, which kind of just set off what was the reason for clear cutting that inside the buffer zone? I mean,
Sure. Yeah. So I
does
wasn't.
anybody know if that's allowed?
I can speak to it if you want.
Go ahead, Peter.
If you
I
want to do
agree.
it later, you can.
No, I can speak to it now. I agree. It is unfortunate and unsightly and not great for the buffer. Unfortunately, our regulations regulate the first 50 feet of vegetation clearing. They didn't do any ground disturbance. They just cut that whole area. So they didn't technically violate the ordinance, but you're right. They cut.
If there are stumps that are ground up, though, I find it hard to believe that the forest just magically stopped at that property line. When you see it on the satellite, the Google Maps, it's forested.
Yep.
So how is there no soil disturbance if you are grinding up stumps of old, wide diameter trees? Does that not count as soil disturbance?
I can answer that a little bit. I wasn't involved in the cutting of the lot, but I know I did speak to the contractor afterwards, and what he wanted to do was chip up as much as he could and make a barrier around that property to kind of act as a silt sock. So it's really a temporary measure. I agree. It shouldn't.
Yeah, but you're
shouldn't stay
taking
there.
probably 50-year-old trees out. That doesn't strike me as temporary, because when you put...
Well, that's beyond the 50-foot buffer, so there is no requirement
So
for
there's,
that.
okay. My other question was, you have the, what DPW suggested was that drainage down in the corner. Since it's such a steep slope, why can't you go across more and stay in between the 50 and 100-foot buffer zone? Because it's still steep, and it seems like maybe water coming at a less steep trajectory. I know there's the filter, but maybe it comes down in a less aggressive manner.
So you mean?
Yeah, instead, move it up the hill, in other words, toward.
Sure.
Is there a reason DPW said that's the best place? Because it seems like it's closer to the house, and then it doesn't have, if you're going in sideways, if you go off more to the left, you'd have more percolation and distribution before it even gets close to the other house, let alone the wetlands. I mean,
Yeah.
it's further away.
No, that's a good point and a good question. So we did have other locations on the parcel. One was actually more here, kind of behind the house, but outside the 100-foot, and then another one was up here. But we did do a site walk with DPW, and their thinking is the outlet should not be in a steep area where you can see as you go up that sideline on the left, the contours get closer and closer.
Yeah.
So they really wanted it in this area that's very gradual down in the corner.
Okay.
You can see
Pretty
also on this plan, that house to the south, probably the corner of that house is 15 feet from the actual wetlands. So that's in a low-lying area.
Right.
And what DPW does not want to have occur is if we had a drain outlet over here, it could possibly flow more towards that house.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that. I had it off, in my thoughts, I had it going off more to the side, so that, to the left side of this drawing, just to keep it further away from the house too, but the other house. But it seems, I mean, I know it's steep along that, but it's not exactly flat once you get to that area where the little, where it's drawn here. Still got a good steepness.
It's not exactly flat, but it is less steep than the other areas.
But,
And we can add some details to the wetland buffer plantings around that stone outlet and even expand it. What we're trying to do is really contain any disturbance in any area. But, probably some red maples down there and other shrubs would fit in nice.
I'm wondering about a rain garden, potentially?
Yeah, so we did think about that. In the past, doing rain gardens under city review, they do like to have an under drain. In other words, your rain garden's up here, and you have your filter mix, it comes down, and it may be 3 feet below the top, you have an under drain. So we'd have trouble doing that down in that corner like that.
So like just in front of where you have that drain, you couldn't put a rain garden at that point?
I guess we'd have to come up the hill
Yeah.
quite a bit to gain an elevation to do that.
Okay.
Because of the slope? Yeah, it is kind of hard on a slope, but it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Sam had her hand up.
Sam.
although It's down now.
Is down?
Well, I don't know if this should just wait for discussion, but, I just wanted to say that in light of how much disturbance has already happened on this property with regards to the clear cutting, I feel like I need to see an extensive replanting plan in order to be able to move forward on this project in one way or another.
And I guess, just to clarify, there hasn't been any disturbance. There's been cutting, which is allowed, correct?
Right, no disturbance of soil, but this property has been disturbed in terms of the extent of cutting that has happened, for sure. The buffer has definitely been disturbed in that way.
Right, but just to clarify, if there were a developed parcel similar to this with the setbacks and somebody wanted to remove all the vegetation on their parcel, there'd be no permit required. I mean, we definitely want to do the best protection we can. I'm just want to make sure we have the regulations correct.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's in sort of exchange for, putting in the BMP and the buffer. You're, just asking for you to really do as much as you can to mitigate that.
I personally am having trouble on this, and I would like to see a landscape plan before I'm ready to vote on it myself. If not, I'm going to vote against it. I just want to state that because I want to see some sort of plan,
Okay. All right. More questions? Yes.
This is maybe just more of a background question, but why is DPW going through all this extra effort with you? Is there a history of flooding, it sounds like, in those adjacent properties?
Yes, so that parcel down here to the south, before any work was done on the site, that homeowner has approached DPW quite a few times. because they're so close to the wetlands, because they're in such a low-lying area, and because of that, DPW said for this parcel, they want a full stormwater management plan, a drainage study, and all that to be engineered, stamped, and submitted. So we have done that too. We've given all that to DPW.
Right.
Wasn't that also a Board of Adjustment requirement?
Yes, I think it was.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's kind of flooding, yeah. And the trees, just to like kind of reiterate, I mean, replanting that and putting trees in will also help with stormwater too, because so much of the water gets caught, in the tree canopy and never
Yeah.
even reaches the ground.
No, and I'm sure the owner can speak to this, but I'm sure it's his intent that after this gets built out, there will be extensive plantings around the site. And if the board needs a landscape plan to show how that's going to shake out, we can prepare that.
Okay, thank you. So in light of that, if there's no other questions?
I was wondering if the applicant would prefer us to postpone a vote?
To prepare a landscaping plan?
Well, I guess what are the options if, is it possible to review as is with the condition that a landscape plan be submitted, or how?
I don't think we're comfortable with that. I think that we need
we'd wanna
to
see the landscape.
see the landscape plan before we could vote on this. Otherwise, I think that from hearing from others that it would not pass. So I think postponement, and we can hear it again at the next meeting
Yeah.
would probably be your best bet.
I know that the owner is up against a tight schedule, but if, and I don't know if you want to speak to that, Liz.
My name's Lance Lachance, currently a resident at 281 Dennett and the owner of 11 Fletcher. Thanks for your time and consideration here. So a couple comments regarding the lot. A few of those trees that were cut in that the buffer area, they were dying anyway, and so that was some of the decision process behind. We do plan on planting some new trees in there. The details of that aren't here yet. I would really appreciate if we could get something approved with stipulations, because we are running against construction schedules and whatnot, and everything. We've done a lot of work to move the house outside of the wetland buffer, those types of things. So yeah, just if we postpone this further, it's a hardship for us, and yeah, I'd really appreciate some flexibility if we could consider approving this with some specific stipulations on the planting. So. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Do you have any kind of a vision for the landscaping there?
No, I'd really be interested to hear your recommendations on stuff in this area. I'm not, a landscape expert myself, but, we're quiet people. We like nature, and, so we do want, to maintain that conservation kind of feel, outside in the back of the house there. So if you do have some specific ideas, happy to, take those under consideration and figure that out.
It's a great spot.
Yeah, thank you.
If you want to save that oak, I'd say move the wood chips away.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you.
it's a cool tree.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
No, I'm just wondering, Peter, is it possible for you to look at a landscape plan? I mean, I want a landscape plan in place before this is approved, and whether we have to look at it or if you look at it, I think that's...
If you can give me some guidance on what you're looking for, so do you want it to look like how many trees? I mean, do we want to just pick a number of trees? How do we, I guess usually when we have a landscape plan, we want a nice bunch of shrubs in the buffer or something. This is like a forested landscape plan, I think you're
Yeah,
leaning
well,
towards.
I think that it depends on the type of
Trees and
trees that are
shrubs.
being planted, but I think there need to be trees and shrubs, and I would say that if we had, say, maples,
Yep.
if we had them about 20 feet apart along the buffer area, that would be a good start.
So maybe we say-
Or oaks, or, we're talking big
maples.
trees,
There are
okay?
oaks
And if
there are
we
a lot
were,
of oaks and white pines right now.
yeah,
there,
and
but-
so if we could have something replicated that is, like what the surrounding canopy is, that would be great. So a couple of very large trees unless they wanted to put in, a small orchard. They could do some apple, pear, plum. There's lots of things that grow in this area. So they could intersperse those between the 20-foot sections of larger trees that would be going in. And then concentrate some native species down in the buffer area where the infiltration trench is.
Yeah, what I think I might do, I think I understand what you're looking for, but I think if you do decide to move it on with me reviewing the plan, I might bring the plan back to you. I don't know if the applicant has to be there or not, but give you my thoughts on it and why I thought it was okay. And if you want to ask them to bolster it up, hopefully they'll be agreeable to that. But it's unusual that we would do something like that. But, if we want to try to meet his schedule, I think we can come up with a plan. It sounds like he's agreeable to it. So I'm willing to work with him.
How do others feel about that?
That's fine with me.
I'm okay if there's certain stipulations that.
Yeah, it'd be
they
great
have
if you
to-
give me a number of trees, if you want to do that.
I'm not sure what that section would be along that buffer boundary.
Well, if you give even the ratio, the 20-foot apart, 20-foot spacing.
20 feet apart of trees that are going to be 50 feet in height. And then you could put smaller trees closer in that area.
And that would be along the 100-foot buffer, you
Along
thinking?
100-foot buffer.
Well, 100 down to
Well,
50,
100
right?
and then
Yeah.
down to the 50.
Down the slope.
Down, everything that's been stripped out.
Well, that corner of the property.
Yeah.
Probably 80 feet would be the closest to the house.
Yeah, because otherwise
You
there's
wouldn't
no,
you wouldn't want to
Yeah.
put them too close to the
Right.
house.
yeah, I'd say 80 feet.
And I have a question. You have to go to the planning board.
Yes, we do, because this is a conditional use permit for any disturbance
Can
within
you-
the buffer.
Can you put that plan together before the planning board meeting? Because that would give us at least a little,
Yes, we can.
yeah. And then that way it can be conditional. You can make a recommendation to the planning board.
Yeah, I can
on-
say that it meets what the Conservation Commission was looking for,
Yeah,
and they'll have a better sense.
okay.
Is that something you guys, come up with the plan, you email it out to us and we all respond, or is this?
No, they would look it over.
the-
Yeah, I can bring it back to the next
Pressing
meeting,
Peter
but in
with
terms
it.
of the planning board, I won't be able to do that.
Okay, the plan, okay. Sorry. I just
You go
needed
online and look
clarification.
at
And just to clarify, I heard 80 feet from the house.
Well, I said the closest, if you're going to be 20-foot spacing, you wouldn't want to put any closer than 20 feet from the house.
20 feet,
And the
okay.
buffer line is right at the house, so that's why I was thinking the 80-foot, from 80 feet from the edge of the wetland would be the closest trees to the wetland.
Got it.
Where the house is, and then as it goes away from
Or
the
the
house, it
furthest.
could maybe meet up to the 100, go up to the 100-foot line.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we probably can have a back and forth on it, Alex, if you were going to design.
Sure.
something, but
I think aesthetically, it would be an improvement also, because right now you have this wall of tall trees, and there's a noticeable thing. So it kind of looks like, wow, what happened here? So I think it would be a benefit.
But are you looking for the whole area to be forested? Is that no,
I think ultimately the
Agreed.
tree canopy will hopefully,
over the long term?
they'll touch
Yeah.
and come together, but at this point, just 20 feet on center should do it.
Covering the whole area, but out to 80 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'd be more like a glade, it'd be sort of an interim.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking right now? So-
Yeah, and then along that back corner, if there could be some native shrubs put in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And Alex, I think a maintenance plan of some sort would be great,
Sure.
because,
Would there be an issue with light and the shrubs if we had trees?
And a
around?
survival rate on the trees, like 80% the first year, those first 2 years, really.
did you have another question, Abby?
Just, if there's shrubs down around that drainage thing and there are trees around, it should be something that's going to work in a shaded area.
Sounds good.
Yeah, there are lots of natives. that-
No, I know there are, but I didn't want somebody just putting in something that needed a full sun and it's like, oops.
Rhododendrons, azaleas.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion then to go with this. Allison?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the planning board with the stipulation that a complete landscape plan to the specifications that we have just suggested be completed in time for the meeting in front of the planning board, and that there will also be a maintenance plan, and that NOFA standards are followed for maintenance of this property.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion? No?
In terms of, I'm just thinking about the maintenance plan, I mean, what about mowing underneath the trees? Do you want to discourage that?
Could it be wetlands?
Well, you could put in like that eco grass or something that really doesn't need to be mowed. But the thing is that ultimately, if you have anything that's just bare ground, you're going to get invasive species in there. And so probably within the first few years, you're going to have to do something to keep that area down at least once a year.
But should that be part of the stipulation that they plant something that is sort of a?
What about a wetland buffer seed mix mowed
Yeah,
annually?
that would
that's what I
be
was
fine.
wondering.
Okay.
You guys okay with that?
Yep.
It won't be
Yes.
lawn.
Okay. All right.
Helps in the long-term care.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote. Lynn?
Yes.
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Chair, yes. Ted?
Yes.
Samantha?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, Alex. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 230 Commerce Way. Two things. One, we're supposed to vote at 5:30 whether or not we want to extend the meeting. So does somebody want to make a motion right now to do that? Allison?
I'll make a motion that we extend the meeting to accommodate the entire hearing process necessary for the next application.
Okay, we are limited till 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, there's HDC tonight.
Because there's another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Ted, second. And can we do all in favor?
No.
Oh, shoot. Yes.
Yes.
Make the state law.
Yes, Abby?
Yes.
Yes.
Allison, yes. Barb, yes. Ted?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we have 230 Commerce Way. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Neil Hansen with Ty and Bond. So we're here for a wetland conditional use permit for a project located at 230 Commerce Way. This is our third time meeting with you on this project. We were here for a work session in February, and then we had a site walk on the 16th of March. We also met with TAC yesterday and received a recommendation of approval for this project to move on to the planning board for the site review. So, Peter, would you mind pulling up?
Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm just going to run through some of the changes that have happened to these plans since the last time we met. Since the last time we met with you. As Peter's pulling it up, the biggest change to the project is the driveway that previously was shown going to Portsmouth Boulevard has been removed from the plans. So the plans at this point just consist of the construction of a 2-story vet clinic at the rear of the existing parking lot, and then the reconfiguration of the parking facility between the existing office building and the proposed vet use. This project is significantly reducing the paved area within the 100-foot wetland buffer. It's a total reduction of just over 5,000 square feet of paved surface. The remainder of the paved surface is all going to be collected and treated through a stormwater filtration unit, where the existing condition of the site is entirely untreated and sheet flows directly into the wetland at the rear of the site.
What sheet do you want me to go to?
I think it's like you just keep scrolling. Yeah, right there.
That one?
Yep. So again, this is the site plan.
What sheet is that?
Sheet C102. I'm not sure which number in the set it is. So it's very, very similar configuration to what we had shown you at work session, minus the driveway out to Portsmouth Boulevard. To the right of the plan there is where you can see where we're proposing to restore the buffer area. So that is the area where we're removing pavement, along with the area we are disturbing for the stormwater outlet, which is discharging to that wetland area in the back. The other two areas I want to point out here while we're on the sheet is at the top of the parking area, there's two sort of clouded hatched areas. Those are our two proposed snow storage areas for this site. So they are right along the 100-foot wetland buffer, but I do want to note that along that entire property line is a very large berm. So any of that snow melt, as it's melting, is going to actually sheet back into the parking lot and then be collected in the stormwater system and treated before it gets discharged. Because so then that berm wraps around the kind of the top of that parking area and then also down the right side of the site. If you go to the next sheet, please. So this is our grading and drainage plan. So as I've already stated, all the surface runoff from the site is being collected. It'll flow through a jellyfish filtration unit and then discharge out to the rear of the site, which is on the right of the sheet here. We had some comments when we met with you previously at work session about trying to reduce the run of that outlet pipe and pull it as far away as we could. Unfortunately, given the grades of the site, that the discharge elevation of that was such that that's kind of where it had to end up. If you could go to, I think, skip the next sheet and go to the one. Yes, thank you. And then also included is a landscape plan for the project area. So all new plantings in the landscape islands, because we've had to relocate a number of those. And then the buffer enhancement restoration area is a wetland buffer seed mix lined with shrubs and trees along the existing tree line. And then in the cover letter with the submission, we addressed the 6 criteria for the conditional use permit. I don't think I need to run through those. I think pretty straightforward application, as we're mostly removing all the impervious out of the buffer. So take any questions at this point.
Questions? Yes, Allison.
I just can't commend you enough for not putting that roadway through to Portsmouth Boulevard, really.
Yeah, I think
My sentiments exactly.
I think we got the exact same feedback from every board we met with, so
Thank you. I'm pretty good with it.
Okay.
I'm good too, even though I'm not allowed to vote.
Sam's time's up.
Sam?
Yeah, is there a fence that's going down the line of where all those buffer plantings are going to be? So in between the one-way road and the new buffer area?
So there is not. I know on sheet C102 there is a call out for one, which should have been removed. That was caught yesterday at TAC.
Okay.
There are, and I did not mention this earlier, but there are 2 fenced-in areas adjacent to the building for pet relief areas. There's one right at this corner of the building, which is for, guess is not the right word, patients, also not the right word, it's a vet.
Yeah.
People bringing their own dogs out. And then there's a second area at the back for staff to bring the dogs out that are being kenneled there post or pre-surgery. And those are fenced and enclosed, so that will keep the pets from doing their thing out in the buffer area.
I think if there is no fence, which I think is fine, I think there should be some signage up just to show that this is a wetland buffer and to make it very clear that it is not to be used for pets.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Ted, you all set?
Yes.
I wasn't here when you came for your work sessions. I just wanted to make sure I kind of understood the project. So you're actually like ripping up pavement and creating vegetation?
Peter, could you go back one sheet for me, please? So this is the existing condition of the site. It is just a large paved parking area. And then you can see along the back here, this diagonal line is the buffer line. So all of this pavement that's in the buffer is being removed as part of this project. And then the area where that pavement is going to be restored and planted with the wetland buffer mix and shrubs and trees.
That's great. And it's awesome that you're like, redeveloping a parking lot.
Yeah, it's
and adding,
pretty wasted
some additional
space
use.
right now.
Totally.
I had a question. So this is the one where your weed barrier fabric, I did look that one up is polypropylene. Is that,
Which was that?
it was a weed barrier fabric, and I don't know what page that's on, because I can't find the same page.
It's fabric sheets. In the details?
It might be in the details, yeah.
Oh, you're looking for it now.
I'm looking, but I don't know.
Was it a planting detail, or was it something else?
Why is it not telling me what page?
Oh, it doesn't show it.
It's not showing the page. For some reason. Why would it not show the page? It's on page 215 of the packet. So I don't know if that helps. That's the whole packet.
Yeah, I don't have numbers in, because I'm sharing my screen, and I don't think I can
Oh,
do
you
that.
don't have the numbers?
Yeah, so 215 is C506.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
C506.
Is it on one of the planting details, maybe?
Yeah, and which one is it in?
Which
Is it in
one?
one of these planting details?
Yeah, I think so. But I just wrote down 215. That's the problem with doing the
Oh.
C506.
Oh, you wrote it down before, you don't see it now.
Right.
I see.
C506.
Want to look at my screen, Barb?
6. Yeah, hold on. Let's see if I can find. Oh, wait, I found 506. Okay, thank you.
Just going to say, it's page 20 if you did the packet.
Yeah, so it's
You did the non-packet.
on page C506 under perennial planting. You have a diagram, I think. With
Yeah.
two. Do you see the diagram?
Yeah.
So at the top it says weed barrier fabric, Marafi Mirascape, or approved equal.
Yes.
So it'd be nice not to have polypropylene all over the place. If you can come up with a
So you want a
natural, I know it's going to biodegrade eventually, but so
Yeah.
does the polypropylene.
Yeah. That's fine. We can-
Like cardboard.
Yeah, like cardboard or something, and just maintain it.
Yeah.
And my other question was a little bit on the, I just want to reiterate the signage at the very least on that area that you have, where the wetland seed mix is and the plantings are,
Yep.
and the maintenance of that wetland seed mix just to be mowed once a year or whatever.
Yes, that is the intent.
That's it. Any other questions from anybody? No? Do we
Nope.
want to make a motion? Yes.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the planning board of 230 Commerce Way with two stipulations. One is that there's signage regarding the wetland buffer and no pets allowed, and then a natural weed barrier, not plastic.
Thank you. Discussion? Oh, second?
I'll second. I was already.
Abby seconded, and discussion. No. I think everybody kind of mentioned that moving the driveway was awesome.
Yeah, that's the only issue I had
Oh,
before,
wait.
and that's why I wasn't.
Actually, I don't think we can have you second, right?
What?
Abigail, can't second?
Oh, I can't second
Not
that.
if he's not going to vote.
Although they took out the issue I talked about, so that's why I was, when you said, I was like, well, wait a minute, why? Because, anyway.
Okay.
That was the only
We'll
issue
keep
I
you
had.
out of it, just to
So I'm out of it, yep.
be
Somebody else
be
want
clean.
second?
Second? Sure. Lynn second.
Lynn,
Sorry. And we had discussion a little bit, and no other discussion. We're going to do a roll call. Samantha?
Yes.
And Lynn?
Yeah. Yes.
And we have one
Abstain.
abstain. And Allison?
Yes.
And Ted?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is other business. We had a couple of things, I think, was the information that Ted had sent out ahead of time. Before we get into that, Peter, did we have two other business ones? In addition to that was the meeting with those guys. Well, the document that Allison sent out was awesome. If you have a chance to look at it, it gives some really good background information in there. So I suggest going through it.
Oh, the
And,
coastal flood risk?
yeah,
Oh.
and then there's the,
Can you talk about that?
yeah, and then there, in addition to that, we were going to be doing, we brought up last time that we were going to participate in a coastal flood risk sort of session, really, right?
Yeah, an all-board session. So the cooperative extension at UNH has, as part of the Coastal Adaptation Network, has been trying to get communities together to just talk about the state's coastal flood risk and hazards guide, and they want to talk to communities, especially the boards and communities, so that they're aware of what the state perceives as a coastal flood risk, so that when boards review applications, they have a better understanding of sort of what the state understanding is.
Is that what the joint meeting is? Or is
The
that
joint
something
meeting
else?
is on June 29th,
Okay.
and that's a different meeting. That's a
Okay.
Conservation Commission and Planning Board just to talk about
Okay.
wetland regulation. This would be a later date, probably in the winter, and it would invite all the different land use boards just to learn about coastal flooding.
It just keeps, so it ties in a bit with your document that you had sent out too,
Right.
which was good timing. Yeah, and the 29th is, that's something that we should all attend for sure, because it's an opportunity to be with those guys. And then also there's going to be some really good presenters, I think, on
Yep.
wetlands and,
Steve Buckley and Sandy Crystal.
yeah.
What day is that going to be?
That's June 29th. The Conservation Commission and Planning Board is June 29th at
6:30.
is it 6:30? 6:30 PM.
Thursday.
Is there a Zoom option, do you think?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, because it has to be video.
It'll be,
but-
yeah, it'll be at least broadcast, but probably Zoom.
Yeah.
So you can ask questions, I believe. I'll double check on that.
Okay, and then you just wanted to mention that Kate had started working and
Oh,
what she
yeah.
would be doing.
So everybody knows Kate O'May is the associate environmental planner, so she's going to be able to help us. She's probably going to help with the Conservation Commission meetings to some degree, and also get us, she's started already looking at our conservation lands, looking at the Pula study, and trying to do better, for the city to do a better job of being stewards of our conservation land. So, and then she's also going to work on the climate action plan, which will be ramping up, starting in the summer with the RFP, but then, you know, the plan will get going in the fall in terms of the writing of the plan, and there'll be a lot of outreach with that too. So it'll be really good to have the help, and there's a lot of other things we're working on as well.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, really excited. Okay, so, I mean, there's other things, but we're running out of time, so,
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick, you know. I want, basically, the city council passed a resolution back in 2017, and I'll read part of it. Not only were they not to use pesticides on city-owned property anymore, in addition, city staff will consult with the City Conservation Commission to prepare an outreach program outlining viable alternatives to synthetic pesticides for the general public's use. And I think there was a hope here that as part of the messaging on stormwater, that they could handle this as part of an outreach program too. But in my opinion, what was accomplished by this mailing is not an outreach program. And I don't think we've accomplished that goal. We met what the city council asked us to do. So I'd like to propose is that we can talk about it at another meeting, but we set up a working subcommittee. Not just have, poor Brian Getz is a busy guy. So, Peter, you announced at the last meeting in December that we're going to do something kind of like the Providence Plan, and this is really good, and that the Stormwater Division is going to oversee it and make it happen. So I immediately contacted Peter. I think I must have CC'd you, Peter, but I reached out to Brian a number of times, and it never really happened. And what they did actually probably was a negative more than a positive, what it actually came out with. So I'd like to have something set up that some sort of little subcommittee that it could be the working people, like someone like Colin Hallowell or Chuck Baxter, who are both accredited in organic land management. They should be part of setting up an education program, you know. They're very knowledgeable folks. There's somebody else that somebody mentioned, this Stevie Rafferty, I think, that works in stormwater management or something. She's the one that actually does those little movies and puts those things together? Is she the one?
She's gone. She left.
Whoever replaced her, is there another function
Daniel,
that's doing
yeah.
that?
There's another guy.
You know, just so we could have a few meetings and throw out some ideas and to see what we can do, because nothing happened and we still
Well,
haven't.
I guess I would disagree that nothing happened. I think that outreach piece is significant, and I wouldn't say it's a negative. I would say it's a positive, and it's a step in the direction of doing things. So,
All right, I didn't want to do this, but I will point out, I said this to Brian. He sent me some kind of draft like this. I said, this is going to be the whole thing? And I said, first of all, you don't want to tell people to put a half an inch of compost on all their lawn. It's very expensive to do, and they're not going to get the results they expect. So then the very next year, they're going to go back to using the Scots or whatever they've been using, you know? And then
he took that from
there's some typos in here, and it said, for more ideas, nofa.net. That's not even a real address. It doesn't take you anywhere. NOFA has a very good program for homeowners, and I had sent Brian the link for that. This isn't even the correct link. If you just sent around for
well,
comment.
I guess I would say it may not be perfect, but it's a step in the direction that we're trying to do, and it's not the end point. It's not just one effort. The idea, according to Brian, is that they will continue to do outreach as part of their program. And if you have suggestions for improvement, I would say that those would be well received.
Yeah, but I will point out this is the exact same card they sent out the year before. Pretty picture on one side. You're wasting all this space. You're providing information. We have this little piece on the other side. I mean, you know, I sent out tax bills and property tax information for years, you know. You want to get the most out of any mailing you do, and it was wholly insufficient, in my opinion. And I'm saying I'm more than happy to do the work. I told Brian, too, I'm happy to meet anytime. But I think that we should put together some sort of interdepartment little working group and throw out some ideas. People that do it on a regular basis, you know. Maybe somebody like Mika might have some ideas from our side, too. She's an educator, you know.
So I also talked to Brian, and he reiterated that this was sort of just the beginning, you know, of getting things started. So I think your concerns about the document, I can see where, you know, it isn't perfect, definitely. But so, you know, if you want to do a working group, that sounds good. I think it should be separate of the city effort, but coordinate with them on some level, but not a working group to tell the city what to do.
Well, the city council told the city what to do, develop an outreach program. We don't have one, damn it. You know, it's been 5 years.
And we've done efforts that have flyers and things like that. We don't have a huge comprehensive program, which I think is awesome to have a comprehensive program, but they have sent out flyers in the past. They've done educational, you know, on the website, they have some educational information in there too, because they need to do that to meet their stormwater permit. So I don't think they haven't done anything, and I don't think the city council specifically said that we had to do a huge comprehensive program, but I don't think that's a bad idea. I just feel like we need to not be telling the city what to do, and that we figure it out and we coordinate with them. And I think, you know, that's a great idea to have a working group. I don't disagree with that at all. You know, this is what I did with my career, was outreach and education around just these topics. And I think there are things that work and don't work, and obviously you've had some experience with it too. I think you can bring a lot of great people to the table. I think, you know, if other people on the commission are interested and have backgrounds in this, which I think they are.
So why can't we have a subcommittee?
It can be a subcommittee or a work, like you say, a working group.
On that, yeah.
I think a working group would be kind of more appropriate term, but.
Would Brian be welcome to have more ideas of how to get word out? I mean, I personally wouldn't want to be responsible for, you know, having to message people, because everybody messages, they receive things differently.
Right.
So if we had a lot of different ideas, would that be helpful to Brian? And is he looking for help in this, or?
Yeah, or to coordinate on some level.
I mean,
Yeah.
or just to give
Not to be-
suggestions.
yeah,
Right.
suggestions
But just like
or
brainstorming kind of on
materials.
behalf of him or for him. because, more minds are, get better at you.
Right, and we may have something come out of it that we need the city's help to do, but, which is a little different than telling the city what to do, I think. So.
And I think that, you certainly can have criticism about it, but I think, if we look at it in a positive way, that there's at least something going out now, how do we make something better? Let's move in that direction instead of saying we didn't do what we were supposed to do, what we did wasn't good. I mean, I think, why not make it a positive thing and move forward and let's make it better, sure. I have no problem with that. I guess what I have a problem with is you saying it's a step in the wrong direction. Well, it is a step in the right direction, and it can be better, of course. So let's make it better, and how we do that is what we have to figure out.
So do we want to vote on having a working group on this? Can we do that?
Yeah, I make a motion that we have a subcommittee working group, that reports back every meeting, on our monthly meetings, gives the report back, this is what's going on, this is the progress that's been made, so that we keep the focus on this, because, look what's happened, we could have got a much better result, definitely could have. So I'd like us to get a better result next time around. Wintertime is the perfect time we can figure it out. We could run an educational program at the library. There's a lot of things we could do. I could maybe try to get people to volunteer their time from the private sector or others and run some, but I'm happy to work with people to do something that could be significant, because Portsmouth is important, and the best thing by our efforts that we could do would be to create a stronger private sector that really understands organic lawn care. People have a lot of money in this town, and nobody cuts their own lawn. Very few do, and they're greenwashed. People come up to them and say, "Oh yeah, we use organic stuff," and they're using biosolids that they produce from wastewater treatment plants. So, I think we could help the citizens a lot, and by our efforts, because I think they're getting ripped off now, and people don't know what's going on out there.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table, and
If it's a subcommittee, does it mean it's just
it's a good question.
We're the volunteers.
members of this, or can we bring other people in? Because there are some people that, they might not want to be on the Conservation Commission, but they would definitely like to just have this sort of, more limited
Sure.
exercise and, something to do on behalf of Portsmouth. Is that, so, yeah.
So I think the terminology working group works a little better for that, I think, on having
Okay.
external.
I
They
don't know
just
my
like it,
bureaucraties.
Yeah, I know.
some official imprint by calling it a working group of the Conservation Commission, or something of that nature, to have some official, motion. So if I call up someone in Eldridge Lumber or something and say, "Hey, can the guy up there come down and do a program at the library for us? I'm not just a crazy citizen, I'm a member of the Conservation Commission calling on behalf of this working subgroup,"
So we can iron that out after we meet. Sounds good.
Okay.
Start internally and then look at, in our first meeting, how we want to go beyond that and identify it. So, does anybody want a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any more discussion? We'll need to schedule the meeting. And so all those in favor of this motion to start a working group, roll call. Samantha, she's gone.
Yes.
Yes,
there.
okay.
There you go, Samantha.
Just that much.
Hanging in
Lynn?
there.
Yes. Abby? Yes, Abby?
Yes.
Yes, Chair? Ted?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Could you just articulate the purpose of the working group? Is it water quality more broadly, non-point source, or is it just pesticide use?
This is herbicides, pesticides.
Herbicides, pesticides
That's-
use related to water quality, but,
Okay.
and it could, who knows, as a working group,
But not
maybe.
fertilizers, that's.
Well, fertilizer too, yeah.
Would include that, anything, yeah.
Kind of lawn care, yard care,
Land care.
land care.
The city's done a wonderful job, I have to say, in the last 3 or 4 years in terms of advancing their efforts towards organic land care. They've done a really good job, They now have 4 people that are accredited some of those guys, like Colin Hollowell, he's in charge of the parks. He should be involved, you know, and he's got experience.
Maybe it's a trees and greenery effort.
It could be.
Just to clarify though, this is more like a residential, we're trying to impact the residential sector, correct?
I would say yes, but it would be nice to able to influence the
Nice.
commercial sector too. you know.
Yeah, business sector would be nice.
So,
Okay.
and we just have to discuss, like, you know, quorum and all that stuff and meeting,
Yeah, I guess you have to set it up however you want, really.
figure that out.
That's part of the beauty though, if it's a working group versus a quorum, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
There
think,
won't have
Quite
to
as
be a
many
quorum.
rules,
I mean, the quorum of of the Conservation Commission, though, if the Conservation Commission all goes, then we have a meeting.
right,
We just have to advertise it,
right.
so if that's the case.
Which we've done before for that kind of thing. and Nobody else comes, except for maybe somebody that saw it and you
So I
want to
think
have
the public
there.
would be, the public would be invited. That's the, if there's, you know,
Yep.
that would be the bottom line.
And we have to go through Isaac to have him get us to meet? Or can we, somebody else take the lead?
We'll figure that out.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So figure out how we can,
But you guys have to
Somebody
say
take
when
them.
you want to meet. Is that-
And who wants to participate?
you want to have a first meeting? You have to say
Yeah, when do
when?
you want, well, when do you want to have the first
How
meeting?
about in about 2 weeks? You know, if we're gonna talk.
We have to
you-
plan the site walk first.
Maybe you want, like, I would like the advice of Colin and his thoughts, you know? People like that, too. I don't know him very well.
All right.
You know,
What's the structure for the
I know
climate
some of
group?
his guys.
Is that a committee or?
Is there any other business?
The climate group that you talked about?
No other business?
Time, right?
Yeah, it's,
I don't have any
it's
other
just,
business.
we're not related to the city whatsoever.
So just a straight up.
Portsmouth Climate Solutions,
Sorry,
yeah, we're
That's
sort
We
of,
gotta convene, or adjourn.
Yeah, no other business, I'll just adjourn real quick?
yes.
You can adjourn. You don't even have to vote. You can just say we're adjourned.
Oh, we're adjourned, okay,
You have
good.
that-
You go, you
you have
got
that
power.
power. You have that power.
I decided to take
Anyway,
up
it's-